One of the issues facing lots of our clients is that when they have a customer where they have to supply between member states and the goods have to be delivered within a short time frame, what they'll do is they'll deliver a consignment stock into a warehouse near to the customer's premises, or sometimes even into the customer's premises themselves. The problem with this is that it can throw up a lot of complexities from a VAT perspective and also from a SAP perspective and how it'll be handled within the system. My name is Derek O'Brien and I lead the tax technology business here in Meridian. I'm joined today by Tara Doyle from our consulting team, Tara, and Nazar Zaidi from our tax technology product team. So before we get into the complexities of how SAP handles this and the challenges around that, you guys have a huge amount of experience in dealing with this kind of stuff over the years. You guys are here for years between the two of you. Tara, could you walk us through maybe the VAT treatment for call-off stock and what are the options that are available and so on?
Of course, happily.
Thanks.
So when we talk about call-off stock from a VAT perspective, as you correctly said, it's where a non-established supplier is moving stock from his own member state into a second member state where his customer is established, and that stock remains there until such time as it gets sold. So this is quite common maybe in the automobile industry, for example, where car manufacturers need quick access to stock and they keep it available until such time that they call it off or rather purchase it. So under a standard setup for call-off stock, we would have two transactions. We would first of all have, and if we have a look at our example, first of all, we have a Belgian supplier. He would move goods from Belgium over into the customer warehouse in Germany, and he would leave that stock there. So because the stock isn't sold, he'd first of all have a movement of own goods from Belgium to Germany. That stock would remain there, and then the second transaction will occur when the customer removes that stock from the warehouse and purchases it. So that would trigger then a domestic sale in the member state in which the stock is being held. So in order to alleviate a little bit of the administrative burden, in 2020, the EU introduced what they call the quick fix for call-off stock. And what this means is that it would give the supplier the potential to not necessarily need to VAT register in the member state where he's holding stock if he has no other taxable activities that would require VAT registration. So how that would work, and if we have a look at our second example, we can see this. How this would then work from a VAT perspective would be that the stock would still be delivered from Belgium into the German warehouse. But at the time that the stock moves, the supplier doesn't account for the movement of own goods that we had in our first example. So he delivers the stock into the warehouse and he files an EC sales list with all of the details of the delivery, but no value, because at the time the goods aren't sold. Now, in our first example, we had a domestic sale when that stock was removed. What happens under the quick fix is that when the stock is taken out of the warehouse, at that moment, it triggers a sale, but that sale is actually an inter-community dispatch of goods from Belgium for our supplier and an inter-community acquisition by the customer in Germany when he takes those goods. So that can remove the VAT registration requirement for our supplier. Now, there are conditions that need to be met. So, for example, the VAT number of the customer must be known before the stock is transported out. As we said already, we needed a special EC sales list. When the goods are removed, a second EC sales list must be filed, and that will contain the value of the goods. Both parties need to keep a very detailed register, so they both need to keep good stock control of where the goods are and what's been moved into the warehouse. And there's a 12-month deadline. So if the supplier were to hold stock in that warehouse over this 12-month period, he would effectively need to VAT register and then treat it, as we saw under the first scenario, an inter-community acquisition and a domestic sale with VAT. His other alternative would be that the goods go back from Germany to Belgium before the 12 months are up. So it is a simplification in the sense that it can remove VAT registration liability potentially where the conditions are met. But obviously then, also from an SAP perspective, it's essential that in this particular sales setup where we do have a stock movement from Belgium into Germany, that the correct tax departure country is taken. So Nazar, how does SAP deal then with call-off stock and what solutions are there?
Sure. So thank you for that, Tara. So we're just going to show a couple of quick examples here in the system. The first point to note is that, of course, the EU quick fixes introduced a requirement for all member states to have a consignment stock relief. But in practice, that doesn't mean that every time a business is involved in such flows that they will use a relief. So there could be examples where perhaps they've got a local VAT registration in place, or perhaps they can't meet the conditions, which means that they won't be using the relief. And as such, what Meridian's done is we've created some functionality which allows our clients to very flexibly maintain at a sales org and country level whether or not they'll be employing the relief. So as in this example here, we've got a Belgian sales org selling into Germany, and currently we've just set this up to say that no relief will be used. The second point that we'd note is that when we go into creation of a sales order, SAP already has some very standard functionality for consignment processes. So it has different sales order types. For example, a fill up, which, as you alluded to, is when the goods are initially moved from the supplier to the customer premises. And we also have a KE, sales order type, which is for the consignment issue. And that is when the supplier will be issuing an invoice. So for the purposes of this example, we're just going to look at a consignment issue. This is a Belgian sales org, and we're going to be supplying a German customer. And initially, as mentioned, within the Meridian functionality, we've set up that we will not be applying a relief in this case. So we're just going to be delivering some standard rated goods from our stock point in Belgium. And if we go into the condition record now, what we will see is very much a local sale taking place in Germany, where the call-off stock is located. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pop back to the Meridian table, and we're just going to change our setting here now. So we're actually going to say that, in fact, we are applying the relief here. And then once we've updated our table, we're just going to pop back in and have a look at how our functionality changes the VAT treat. So we're now just going to pop back into our sales order, and we're going to carry out a redetermination of the pricing and the VAT. And now when we go back into it, we see within our condition record, our tax departure country has changed to Belgium, and our destination country would be taken from the customer location, which is Germany, and that's just updated to EU for the purposes of the condition record. And as such, that's a small example of how Meridian, in a very flexible manner, allows our clients to handle the complexities with consignment stock in an easy-to-use table.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Nazar. That was really useful, and it really does highlight the challenges of not just understanding the VAT rules itself, but even where a business actually does understand the VAT rules, and generally they will, it's still within SAP, it doesn't handle all of the variances that will throw up in this kind of scenario. And that's where the solution from Meridian can actually step in and cover those gaps. And so this is something that is a challenge that you've experienced and you're still struggling to overcome, and you'd like to discuss it further, you can get in contact with us, and you'll find all of our contact details on meridianglobalservices.com.